All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first of two interviews this evening. Tonight, or this afternoon, we are joined by Damien Wayne. He's the wrestling god who has to be introduced as the crippled messiah. And of course, you all know me, the heartbreaker. That's right, the one the women want. And you know it because I'm better than you, and even the messiah knows it. So,
Sure, I do.
Mr. Wayne, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Oh man, I'm just a old man living a dream currently. I had a late start getting into business. I didn't get into I was 30 years old, and I just thought it was going to be just a little thing. I was just being in the ring was a dream come true. And next thing I know, I started busting my butt and riding the roads and building a name for myself. And here I am today, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, for getting such a late start though, you've wrestled some pretty big names.
Yeah, I definitely cannot complain at all about my career. Everything I've done, the places I've been, people I've met, and stuff like that is all icing on the cake and something I never imagined I'd do.
All right, Messiah, why don't you start us off?
So normally I ask one question, but I watched one of your matches today, and I have to ask: you wrestled the Tokyo Monster Kahagas,
Quite a few times.
and the one match I saw was Falls Count Anywhere, and you guys actually made it to like the mechanical bull set. And
Oh yes. Oh
first of
yes.
all,
That
I had never seen anybody take a face plant on a mechanical bull and then get bucked off afterwards. So that was entertaining.
well,
But
I'm
I mean,
glad y'all
can
liked
you
it.
tell us a little bit about that match? Because it looked pretty hard hitting.
Well, me and Tokyo's got a very long history. We've wrestled each other all over the place and in almost every kind of match. And that match was in North Carolina for a company called AML, and we were in a bar called Johnny and June's, and of course they had the mechanical bull, and that was something done on the spur of the moment. We were just having fun out on the floor, and I glanced over there and saw the bull, and we made our way over there, and magic was made. And they started chanting, "Turn the bull on, turn the bull on," and I guess the operator was over there at the right moment and turned that son of a gun on. The things that happen by accidents are usually the classics.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into your other big matches here because I know the Messiah is going to ask a bunch about those. So I'll just hit the hard hitting questions today. So let's start with your top 5 male wrestlers of all time.
Well, I am old enough to where I was blessed to experience true kayfabe, and of course, growing up, you started off by liking all the good guys, and then um, me and my best friend started cheering for the heel. We were heel marks before heel marks were cool, and then 2020 came out with Eddie Mansfield breaking the secret about wrestling. So I kind of understood what was going on. So my favorites became the guys who still actually made me believe. So even to this day, my top 5 were, I have to say 6 because number 5 is basically a tie, but they're still the same ones as when I was a teenager. And that was number 5 and 6 is a tie between Manny Fernandez and Terry Funk. Number 4 was Jake Roberts. Number 3 was Rick Rude. Number 2 was Barry Windham. Number 1, Tully Blanchard. And I was blessed to learn something from every one of those other than Rick Rude. Rude was passed away before I got into business, but the other ones I've trained with or I've learned from or some capability, wrestled or something. So that was truly an honor.
Very cool. So, uh, who were your wrestling heroes growing up?
Um, as for heroes, I don't think I really ever had like a hero. There wasn't like one that I particularly looked up to as a hero. Um, I was just a huge wrestling mark. Everybody that knew me, they associate. I mean, if you said my name, first words that's going to come out of their mouth is wrestling. So there would be too many that I would have to say if I had to pick a hero. It'd be like way too many because I looked up to them all because that's what I wanted to be my whole life.
Got ya.
Okay, so we asked the top 5 males, so now we're gonna just do it. Top 5 females of all time.
I don't think I ever really made a list of top females, but if I had to the ones that worked like men to me would probably be my favorites, like Jazz, Victoria, Tyra, whatever you want to call her. She changes name in different promotions, but them two definitely. And I would throw Trish in there because I think when Trish was doing her managing thing and then disappeared for a little while and came back as an actual worker, I think she really busted her butt and she hung in there right there with those two girls. So off the top of my head, I'd say those three right there. Those three, I couldn't probably really, there's a couple of indie girls that I would throw in there, like a Casey Carlisle. I think she's really, really good. And there was a girl that was in the business in the area that I started training in, and her name was Cameo, and she wrestled a lot of us guys and just was really, really, a tough female. So I'd probably throw those 5 girls' names out there.
Very nice. Can you tell us what it was like to wrestle Nick Aldis, or when you wrestled him, it was Magnus?
It was good. A little story about that was on the whiteboard, and per the promoters, they wanted me going over. I was wrestling a lot of these TV stars they were bringing in at the time, and he was calling out the match and had himself going over. So I just went to the promoter and said, I'm one of the rest. I do not care whatsoever. So I went to the promoter and just said, hey, he's got himself going over. Is that okay? And they were like, he don't want to do it. And I was like, man, I didn't ask. I'm just listening. I'm just sitting there saying yes, sir. And but he laid out the match to where even though he went over, it laid out to be nothing that made me look bad or anything like that. So I couldn't complain about it at all. But it was a good match. I enjoyed it. Very technically sound. I actually I kind of felt away there for a little while after that, but then I got to he came out and I did stunt work on this TV series or Heels, and for season 2 he was out there, and I actually got to know him a little better, and he's a good guy.
Very cool. On both accounts, I like the show Heels, so the fact that you did some work for them is kind of cool to me.
Yeah, I was Wild Bill and Charlie Gully's stunt double.
Gotcha.
Which we just watched Friday night. We just watched episode 1 of season 2 just came out.
Nice.
Wow. Okay, so I guess I'll ask the.
Oh, we lost him.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're having technical difficulties. We'll be right back.
Oh, see, he said right back.
I'm back.
And like I said, we'd be right back. So I guess now we're going to get into the highly debatable question that we always like to ask on this podcast. In your opinion, who is the best wrestler turned actor?
Oh, I would probably say The Rock. There's quite a, even though some of them may come off cheesy, I really enjoyed a lot of The Rock's movies. I actually watched one. Um, I cannot remember the name. I think it might have been YouTube. I was scrolling on and a little section popped up about movies, and there was a Rock movie that I never even heard of. And it's one where they did maybe a bank heist or bank robbery, and these people set him up and they killed his brother and whatnot. So he got released from prison and he went on a killing spree, killing all the people that set him up. And the people that turned out to set him up were a bunch of CIA agents, whatchamacallit, so however you want to say it. But I was pretty enjoyed that, enjoyed that movie. So yeah, I'd say The Rock.
That does sound like a good movie. I'm gonna have to go look that one up.
I can't remember the name if that's because I'm not even a movie person, and it just I was just I was watching some old wrestling, and then I said, well, let me, I liked a lot of his stuff, so I said, let me check this out, and I actually got glued to it and enjoyed
Uh, so your top 5 tag teams of all time.
it. My all-time favorite is Raging Bull and Rick Rude. I like how they were thrown together, and next thing you know, they were like the baddest team out there. Huge Midnight Express mark. Um, of course, the Road Warriors, just for being the Road Warriors. I really like Arn and Tully because to me, I think Arn and Tully is the only long time tag team that if you really watch them wrestle, they never had any double team moves like Ricky and Robert had, like Midnight's had, like the Bulldogs had, like the Hart Foundation had. Arn and Tully never had any. I mean, the closest you can call a double team move for them was if they ever pulled out the spike power driver. But other than that, they were an amazing tag team without being a tag team, if you can understand what I'm saying.
I do, and I'll tell you what, I never considered that before. That's a very good point.
Yeah, it's if you watch them, like no matter who they wrestled, I I hate saying it's two singles working together as a team, but that's basically what it was.
Very good. Okay. Well, it seems like you stole my tag team question. I guess I'll just have to go with. The commentator question. Top 5 commentators of all time.
Well, it doesn't really get any better than Bobby and Gorilla. Them two were great together.
Yep.
Other than them two, I don't think I ever really paid. I mean, a lot of them had their goods and the bads. I don't think I ever really paid too much attention to them because there's truth at wrestling, baseball. Baseball is my other second passion. I can't watch either thing. I cannot watch any wrestling and I can't watch any baseball as a fan because I'm too busy studying what they do. So studying what they're doing in the ring, I kind of put the announcers in the back, in the back of my head. I don't pay attention too much of them. But I grew up on Gordon Soley, so I'm going to definitely say Gordon Soley. He seemed to take the sport serious. And of course, I'd say early Jim Ross, because he knew he took he treated the sport serious too, and made it seem like it was top notch serious sport. So I'd say Bobby, Gorilla, Gordon, Jim Ross, and then I'd probably throw Mike Tenay in there.
It's a good list. So can you tell us what it was like to work for the NWA?
To me, amazing. To me, those three letters still meant something because I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, basically right in the heart of Crockett Promotions Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. I was 10 minutes from the Hampton Coliseum, 20 minutes from the Norfolk Scope, and an hour from the Richmond Coliseum. So I got a lot of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. So being a three-time NWA National Heavyweight Champion is still, I hold that dear to my heart because, you know, I saw that title defended by the greats, Wahoos and Tullys and the Garvins and stuff like that. And I wrestled for and was supposed to have won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I was told for 3 months that I was going to be the next champion after the little fiasco between Pierce and Colt Cabana. And I drove 8 hours from Hampton, Virginia to New Jersey, only to walk into the building, and they pulled me to the side and said that everybody and their grandma knows you're going to win, so we're going to swerve the fans. And that's the night they put it on Kahaga, Tokyo Monster Kahaga. And so that I got screwed out of that. And then I formed a tag team with a guy named Lance Erickson. We were the Lords of Chaos, and we busted our tail for over 3 years to try to get those NWA World Tag Team belts. And we finally got booked to go to New Japan and beat Tenzan and Kojima for the belts. And he kind of screwed that up by being a felon and not being able to get a passport. So I got screwed out of both world titles in the NWA, but you know, that's wrestling. Just being in that talks is for those belts were still amazing.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell guys a lot when I hear some young guys and bitch and complain and whine about this business and what they don't get and everything, and I tell them just to shut up, man. I've had things happen to me that would make most of y'all quit right then and there, and my passion's too strong.
I can relate.
Okay, so as I processed that, I'm just going to turn off topic and just do this. You said you're also a baseball fan, so it's wrestling and baseball. That is ironically, those are my two passions too. So, who's your baseball team?
Oh, Atlanta Braves. Been an Atlanta Braves fan since the early 80s, just because they came on right after wrestling. I've been Atlanta Braves fan since Bob Horner and Murphy and Claudell Washington and all them guys.
Awesome. I've been a Braves fan probably since the 90s. I guess when they started doing their big 90s run, you know, right when Murph retired, and they brought in all those guys, and they've done their 90s run. I've been through their 2 World Series championships. Yes, I'm a huge, even though we live in Washington, tried and true, I am a Braves fan first and foremost and Mariners fan second.
Yeah, I love some Braves, man. I love. I could watch any baseball team play, but I'm a Braves fan. That's who I root and cheer for.
So, Crippled Messiah, remember, you are now officially outnumbered here.
Yes, I know.
From 8 years old on up, I played 23 years of baseball. So, and when wrestling's over, I wouldn't mind trying to. I would love to coach varsity high school baseball.
Very cool. Go ahead, Messiah. Ask away.
You've had a lot of trainers, but what's the best advice some of your trainers have given you, and do you still use that advice today?
Just main number one is being believable. I always wanted to be believed. I never wanted to be out there and have anybody sit in the crowd and say, "Oh man, that dude's stuff looks fake." So that was the main number one, is being believable. And from all the, like with Tully Blanchard, I got to train with him for 4 months, and even we had 2 shows, and he was our booker for 2 shows. So just the main thing I learned from Tully was how good he was with heat, the heat and stuff with guys. He main thing he said to me was like, if you ever watch a match between me and Ricky Morton, you'll see it's a complete roller coaster. That it's maybe about 2 minutes of heat, give a little comeback, cut off. 2 minutes of heat, give a little comeback, cut off, until you build it up, build it up, build it up. So I never got into the let the baby get over in the beginning, cut him off, 5 to 10 minutes of heat, and then the big comeback. I never got into that. So that was one thing I learned from Tully. Barry Windham I had as a road agent at some of my WWE stuff. So one thing he would talk or emphasized was transitions between moves, how to get from one thing to another. And Jake, I just picked psychology. I picked his brain for psychology. He's a mastermind at that. And Manny Fernandez, just Manny was more of, I don't want to say it hardcore style. It was more of getting in there and going balls to the wall, because Manny was balls to the wall. And I wrestled him probably about 10 to 15 times. And it's like I had to step it up more and more every match. And so it's the main thing I preach to anybody that picks my brain is believability. That's the main, no matter what you do in there, and believability along with psychology. And I always tell them I'll never crap on any style, because any style can work as long as you have those 2 key ingredients: believability and psychology.
Absolutely.
Okay, so our other supervising producer wanted me to ask you, have you ever been to the CAC?
No, I haven't. Plenty of times I wouldn't have mind going out there, but I've never had the opportunity to do it.
All right.
So go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just gonna say, go ahead.
Okay. So you mentioned you were in the WWE or your WWE days. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I just got to do quite a few extra work for them back in like 07 and 08. They gave me like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Hampton and went to the Hampton Coliseum since I was 7 years old, and always remembered looking at my friends and saying, I'm gonna wrestle here one day. I'm gonna wrestle here one day. You watch. And WWE gave me the opportunity to do it twice. The first time there, me and my trainer, I had 2 trainers, but me and one of my trainers wrestled the Highlanders, if you remember them 2 guys.
Yes.
And then that was on Sunday Night Heat, and then another Sunday Night Heat, I got to work Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and they loved everything about me until they found out how old I was, because at that time I was 37, 38 years old, and way too old for them to invest anything in. And so I kind of knew that getting into business. I knew it getting into business at 30 years old. I wasn't going to get in a contract, but I can't, I experienced wrestling for them. I experienced wrestling at my hometown Coliseum, and it was pretty great. Everybody there was really good to me.
Wow.
That was about the same time that I got to do a lot of Ring of Honor work. I did more Ring of Honor stuff than I got to do WWE, but I definitely cannot complain about anything that came my way.
Fair.
All right. Well, he brought up Ring of Honor, so I've got to ask: did you work with the Briscoes?
I never got to work against them, but of course I was on many shows with them. I did a lot of the pre-show stuff. So this was when Ring of Honor was still basically a northern company. They really they hadn't branched out of the north yet. And me and a local buddy of mine, he lived in North Carolina, and his name was Rex Sterling, and we got together and got our DVDs with some matches on it, and drove to Edison, New Jersey one night to see Ring of Honor live for ourselves, first time. And we were like, we're going to find Gabe and get Gabe Sapolsky, who was the owner and booker at the time. We're going to find him and give them these DVDs. So we went to the show, we watched the show, we were blown away, we were in love with it. We both said this is where we want to be, and we looked and looked and looked and looked and never found Gabe at all. And it came to the end of the show, people were hanging around, walking around, leaving and whatnot, and they were tearing down the ring. And I said, well, I'm going to give this to somebody. I don't care who it is. I'm going to give these to somebody that's involved with the company. And we ended up giving it to somebody on the ring crew. And as soon as we walked away from that, we looked at each other and said, Gabe ain't never going to see these. And 6 months later, we both got the call to come do some pre-show stuff, and did quite a few pre-show stuff with them. Gabe came to us and said that he really loved our stuff, loved our work, but there really wasn't a spot quite yet for Ring of Honor, but he would love to have us at FIP, which was their sister promotion down in Florida, Full Impact Pro. And so we started going down there quite a bit. We were in some good stuff. We were in some good stories. We both were part of it was Phil, Sean Davis and Phil. Anyways, they were the Heartbreak Enterprise, a big little group. And so we joined them. And then the few times I got they gave me shots at shows in WWE, Ring of Honor, me and another guy, which was another indie guy along with me. We worked Delirious and Necro, Butcher in a 4-way. Me and a buddy that trained and broke in together got to work Eric Stevens and Brent Albright on a main show. I even main evented a Ring of Honor show and wrestled for the world title when Nigel had it. It was me versus Nigel versus Claudio versus Brent Albright.
You know where your dad's at?
So I got to do some pretty cool stuff with Ring of Honor.
Very cool.
And one of our pre-shows, me and Rex wrestled at one of their Do or Die shows, which was in Philly. And we had the Philly crowd chanting, "Please come back." So that really made us proud that we won over the Philly crowd, which anybody knows about sports and Philly crowds, it's hard to do.
I was going to say, that ain't easy.
No, not at all.
Oh.
So I'm going to ask a question for the Heartbreaker, because I know he's gonna want to know this. What was it like working on a card with Matt Hardy for AML?
It will. Yeah, I've been on shows with both Matt and Jeff, and it was to me it was just meeting another guy, because I've met so many of them over my years. There wasn't too many that I was starstruck by. All right, I'm getting attacked here, girls. Y'all come on. They want to be on TV too. This is my boogie.
It's like, well, if you're not starstruck by the wrestlers, you can be starstruck by us.
Yeah. They're my babies. I got 5 of them, and they're our world.
We got 7.
Well, I got 5 dogs, 2 cats. But so Matt and Jeff, it was, I don't want to say it was just meeting two just two wrestlers, but it was because I felt like they were, as long as they acted like, not snubs. I really haven't met anybody that was like an ass or a snob. They've all been pretty cool over the years that I've met. So it was cool meeting them. It was cool being on the shows with them. Because you always knew that you were going to have a pretty good house if one of them was on the show. So.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? Let's see here. What is your opinion of death matches, and would you ever do one?
Like I said earlier, I wouldn't crap on any style, but there's certain ones out there that know how to do it and do it with psychology. And as long as you got that, then it's okay. But when you just got people going out there swinging with weapons and light tubes just to be doing it, I don't care for that at all. I'm not a big fan of it. I did probably a death match light match against Tank, which was I enjoyed that because I like that dude. I think he's good, and I enjoyed that match. We didn't get crazy with light tubes or anything like that, but we got a little crazy. And as for the ultra death match type stuff, no, I would never do that. But I've been a part of. I feuded with a guy named Adrian Whisper for a long time, and way back in the years, and he's really into that type of stuff, which is crazy because he could probably out wrestle 95% of the guys out there wrestling, but he just really enjoys that hardcore stuff. So whenever the light tubes or thumbtacks and stuff like that was presented or came out, it was always him taking it. I never did it. So, but I don't mind getting a little crazy here and there because I get it out of my blood, because for me, I always traveled. I wanted to travel, and I was never in the same place for too long. So I never was blessed to really be in storylines and stuff like that. So it was more of just a lot of regular matches. So whenever I got to have any kind of gimmick match, I always enjoyed it because it would build up in my blood, and then I was able to get it out of my blood. Most of my career was when I was I was one time NWA North American champion, then I was the national champion, and then 3 times AIWF world champion. So I enjoyed the Ric Flair role. I enjoyed going to different places, putting over their big baby face, making the baby face look like $1 million, and then some way, somehow I weaseled out still being the champ. So that's what I love doing to this day, even without a belt. I like going in and working the young guy, the young kid, and just trying to build him up and build them, and even win or lose. I remember somebody made a post about, have you ever turned down anything that a promoter or booker's told you to do, and or you ever made a fuss or blah blah, something along that lines? And I was like, from day one, I've been the guy that I do what I'm told, and I do it to the best of my abilities. And then I stopped myself and I said, wait, I have argued with promoters, but I have argued to put somebody over. That I'd be somewhere. One night I argued with a promoter for 30 minutes because they didn't want me to lose, and of course they didn't want him to lose. And I was like, dude, I came here to put this kid over in the middle of the ring. He's y'all's Hulk Hogan of this area. These people love him, and they're going to crap on a double count out, double DQ, whatever, for a main event. So it took me 30 minutes to convince them to let me lay down and let this guy beat me. So that's because that's just me. I enjoy that. I enjoy helping any and everybody I can help, and I have no ego. And I could lose every match as long as I make that other guy look like $1,000,000 and the crowd like.
Very cool. So I think, and we've been doing quite a few of these, but I think you're probably one of the most well-rounded wrestlers that we've had. Like a lot of them, are more one style or the other. I mean, you wrestle guys like Cahagas, which is more the hardcore, style, and then you wrestle guys like Nick Aldis for the technical side, but you've also wrestled like Julio De Niro, which is more of like the cruiserweight, you know, high
Yep.
flying style. Is that something that you always tried to do,
Oh
or is it
yes.
just something that you're like natural at?
No, well, I feel I'm natural at it, but I that's another thing I preach is be adaptable and be able to wrestle any style. I tell guys that I could have 2 matches in one night, and one of them can be against a 150-pound dude that wants to flip and fly, and then the next one can be against a 400-pound guy. And I guarantee I can go in there and work against both guys, make it believable, and make it make sense. So I enjoy being able to do that. I tell guys, I said, I can chain wrestle. I can chain wrestle with the best of them, but it's not what I want to do. I don't mind doing it. But as the older I got, my style has become more of the Terry Funk, Bruiser Brody style. I'm a brawler, and but I can adapt to anybody that I wrestle with. I tell guys it took me about 8 to 9 years to get to that point, but I feel comfortable in my abilities that it can be any guy on the face of this earth, no matter where they're from. And I can rook them. I can wrestle them. No matter if it's a language barrier. I wrestled Kojima. Once that story, Kojima was the NWA World Champ. I wrestled him, and we had Rob Conway as a translator because he spoke no English, and I had no problem. It was like business as usual. And because I tell guys, you got to learn how to work off other people's body languages. I just did a seminar last week, and one of the things I preached to them was there's ways that we can make our jobs easy for each other in the ring and not even have to talk, and it's body language. And when you learn how to read somebody's body language, you can go out there and wrestle 20, 30 minutes and never have to talk about anything. And that's what I prefer. I prefer to go out there and walk and talk. And the second time I ever wrestled Adam Pearce, he was NWA champion at the time, and we went 60 minutes, and we didn't talk about nothing in the back. And we knew we were doing a dusty finish with me hitting a power driver and covering and 1, 2, and they were going to ring the bell for the 60-minute draw. And then the ref was still going to count 3 after that. And everybody thought I won the belt, but it was a time limit draw. But we didn't talk about nothing. And we had no clue how we were going into that finish. No clue whatsoever until that we heard 20 seconds left, 20, 19, 18. And we were like, oh shit, here we go. And there's not too many people who can do that. Yeah. And that's just what I love it that way, because I work off the crowd. I hear a lot of times, especially some old timers say, you tell the crowd what you want them to do. And I'm like, I look at it opposite. The crowd's going to tell me what they want me to do. If I'm working a guy that has to talk everything out in the back, we can lay something out in the back. And I'll tell them before we go out, if we go out there and you're bumping me at the beginning of the match and they're into it, you better be ready to be able to take a right turn and go this way, because I'm going to continue to keep them on the path that they're enjoying. I'm not going to force them to watch something that they're not going to enjoy. So yeah, I prefer that style, and I have no problems going around and putting any and everybody over.
It's a great way to look at things.
I wish more people did. I'm not too good to. Here's a story for you, and it trips me out because years and years later, I've been around him bunches of times after this, but I was on a show with Ricky Morton, and I was out in my car in the parking lot. And he pulls up, and he gets out, and we're hugging. He's like, "Man, it's been a while since we've seen each other." And he goes, "You know, Damien, I put you over in my class at my school all the time, and I put you over in all my seminars." And it kind of took me away because I've seen him plenty of times after this incident that I'm going to tell you about, and he never said anything. And I was like, "Well, what's that, Ricky?" And he was like, "For what you did with that little guy." And I was like, "Little guy?" He was like, "Yeah, that little guy." And I was like, "Oh, you need the midget?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah." And the story is me, and I broke into business. First 6 years I broke into business, I was part of a tag team with another trainee, and me and him and a fan that we knew quite well actually ran a message board and all that. The three of us went up the road in Virginia. We went to a show there where it was at a high school. There was probably over 2,000 people there, and it was mainly a Legends type show. Midnights were there, Ricky and Robert, Bob Berry, and da 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 da. And then there was some indie guys sprinkled in. And one of the guys that trained with us and one of our trainers was on the show. Well, before the show, we're sitting up in the bleachers, and the buddy that trained with us, his name was Chris Escobar. He come up the bleachers and say, "Hey, Dub, I got a spot for you." And I was like, "Oh shit, hell yeah! All right, let me go get my gear." So we walked down the bleachers, and as soon as we got down at the end of the bleachers, he kind of whispered in my ear. He was like, "But you got to wrestle the midget." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And he kind of looked at me funny, and we kept walking. We got through the doors to the hallway where nobody was at, and he goes, "But you got to put the midget over." And I was like, "Okay, all right, that's cool." And he was like, "Wait, you don't have a problem with that?" And I was like, "Well, why would I?" And he was like, "Because the promoter asked 8 guys that was already booked on the show to do it, and none of them would do it." And I was like, "That's a challenge right there, man. I got to go see if I can't do this, you know." And I put that, it was Short Sleeve Samson, if y'all know who Short Sleeve Samson is. And I'll put that match in my top 5 matches of my career. I had a blast. And that's what Ricky was talking about, that he puts that story over to any and everybody he can. And I was blown away by that.
Wow.
Wow. All right, so let's do the advice that you would give up and coming wrestlers.
The top 2 basically is what we've already talked about. Be believable in what you do, and be able to adapt and wrestle any style, any size guy. Because you know, like you say, you get 2 high flyers, and then you know you get a guy that likes high flying and cruiserweight stuff, and that's what he wrestles, a lot of cruiserweight stuff. Or a guy wrestles a lot of cruiserweight guys, and then it comes for him to wrestle a 350-pound dude. He ain't gonna be able to do all that cruiserweight stuff with that size guy. So be able to adapt to your surrounding, and then again, crowds. There's so many different types of crowds. I've went up north and tried to wrestle a Southern style match, and they shit on it. I went down south and tried to wrestle a Spot Fest Ring of Honor style match, and they shit on it because you got different crowds. You got ones that like your spots. You got ones that just want a good guy and a bad guy to cheer and boo for. And just when you go on the road, there's so much more to learn than just wrestling. So they just need to take it all in. They just need to take all that in and be able to adapt. That's my main advice.
Very good advice. So let's stay on that track. What advice would you give to somebody starting a new promotion?
Oh man, I had the opportunity to book for 2 different promotions. I love booking. That's one of my favorite things. And my first thing I did was I booked guys that I could trust. I've been to so many shows where I see the promoter and the booker, if they're not even if they're the same person or not, look like they're pulling their hair out because they're just going crazy with what's going on. This guy don't want to do this, or this guy doesn't want to lose, or blah 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 blah. And I booked guys that I could trust. I booked guys that I knew weren't going to give me a problem, and I was also a hard ass. You can't book to please everybody. You're the boss. If they don't want to listen to you, then hey, there's the door. Go out that door because there's 10 to 15 guys outside of that door that'll want your spot and do what I need them to do. And I look at myself. Like I said, I've always been the guy that I came to. I always, if I'm talking to the guy before a show and he's like, "Well, I want you to do this and do that," and I'm like, "Yes, sir. You're the boss. I do what I'm told, and I'll do it to the best of my ability." So I tried to find guys that think the same way I think. So that's one thing I would tell them is you got to book. I don't care how big their name is or anything like that. You got to book guys that you can trust.
Very
and
good
then
advice.
Then it goes from there. There's booking a show is not just putting this guy against this guy and putting it at match 3. There's a flow to a whole show. Me personally, say if I had 6 matches, I looked at it as 2 separate shows, a 3-match show and a 3-match show. I had my hot opener, I had my somewhat cool down match, and then the match right before intermission would be a main event quality match. Then you have your intermission, come back, you got another hot opener, then you got your somewhat cool down match, and then you got your main event. It's just so much to it, and that's not saying so much to where it's complicated, but there's so much more than just write names down and saying, okay, they're going to wrestle here, they're going to wrestle here, they're going to wrestle here.
That's a great way to look at that.
And guys just don't get it. I've been to so many shows where there's no flow to a show. And guys going in for business for themselves or bitching and complaining because they don't want to do this or they don't want to do that. And I look at it and I'm like, man, if I can go out there and put a midget over, y'all can do anything that this guy asked you to do.
Absolutely. All right, Heartbreaker, you got a question?
All right. Well, since he said he used to book shows, let's do if you could book a card from any promotion of any time. So let's do a WrestleMania card, any promotion, any generation, 6 matches, go.
Let's see. Man, you catching me on the spot here, and I used to do this all the time. I would, with no order, matches I would love to see would be, I would love to see a prime Rick Steamboat against even today, because I think he's still in his prime, but Randy Orton. To me, Randy Orton's been the best in the business in the last 15 years. Can't nobody touch Randy Orton. I would have loved to see him a Ricky Steamboat against a Randy Orton. I would have loved to see Maybe a Big Van Vader against Brock Lesnar. Let's see. Probably a good heel Barry Windham against The Rock. Shoot, even I wouldn't mind seeing Arn and Tully against Usos, babyface Usos. Rick Rude against John Cena.
Oh.
And let's go with let's say I think a Manny Fernandez Samoa Joe match would be pretty cool.
Ooh.
Now, when I get off with y'all, I'll probably have 20 matches pop in my head.
You know, I've only said this a handful of times, but I would pay whatever money you asked me to pay for that card you just said.
I think it would be pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I know I'm missing so many people.
So, top 5 indie male wrestlers today.
Bordeaux Walker, Cahagas, a guy named Derek Neal. Let's see, Chase Stevens. And let's throw out there Jackson Slade.
Good list. All right, Heartbreaker, you're up.
Okay. Go ahead and ask another one there, Messiah. I'm doing something real quick.
Okay, top 5 female indie wrestlers today.
That's a hard one. Because there's a lot that I've seen that I've forgotten their name. But to me, the best, and I'm not even sure she's doing much work lately, but to me, Casey Carlisle was the best that I've seen on the indie scene. Like I said, there's plenty that I've, in my travels, I might have seen on the show and watched their match and really liked their stuff, but I honestly couldn't sit here and remember their name, which is probably bad on my part, but.
No, you're fine. All right.
But Casey was very believable in everything she did, so that's what really made me enjoy her work. Everything she did was believable.
Yeah, we've heard that from quite a few people. So.
And not weak. Nothing was weak looking. She laid it in there. She worked like one of the guys.
All right. Well, let's do the top 5 indie tag teams.
Indie tag teams. The Heat Seekers. Sigmund and Elliott. The Extreme Horsemen, which is C.W. Anderson, and one of my trainers, Preston Quinn. A young team that I really enjoy watching is the Russell Twins. They're really fun to watch, and Man, I do a show in Panama City, which I'll actually be there this weekend coming up, Panama City Beach, Florida, and the guy there's brought in this team. Man, I cannot remember their name, but they're both. Um, they, I'm not sure if they're actually legitly from a different country type thing. Iranian type. I know they're not Iranian, but if you're trying to catch my drift,
Yeah, I got you.
they're really good because they play heels. You know, you get a lot of guys that want to be bad guys, but they want to be cool. And these guys ain't trying to be cool. They're out there generating heat, and they're really good. I hate that their names slip, but first time I actually saw them, they were there. The promoter brought in Cody Diener, and because they were in the area and did a seminar, those two guys stood out in the whole seminar, so they earned their spot on the show, and they're there on a regular basis now. And ever since I've seen them, I've tried to reach out to promoters and bookers that I knew and that might be looking for tag teams and whatnot. So it really sucks that I can't remember their names right now, but those are probably the best ones that I've seen out there right now. It doesn't seem like there's too many like me, I personally I love tag team wrestling, and I don't think there's too many people who do because they don't want to share the spotlight. And like with me, I enjoy it, but I'll never be part of another. I wouldn't be a part of another tag team to try to establish ourselves because now your career is in somebody else's hands. And like the instance with me, and earlier where I said my buddy couldn't get a passport, so he ruined it for us. But tag team is a lost art. Tag team wrestling is a lost art, and when you get four guys that know tag team psychology, it's really really fun, and I enjoy it.
Very nice. So, uh, where can we find you on social media? And what's your next upcoming show?
I basically just do Facebook. I do a little Instagram, but Instagram is more of sharing my dogs and cats. But Facebook is where I keep my schedule and all that upcoming shows. So you can just type in Damien Wayne, and my shoot last name is on there, so it's Damien Wayne Costal. Um, my next show will be this Saturday coming up in Panama City Beach, Florida for XIW, where I'll be wrestling Bordell Walker. Again, I've had many battles with this guy in every match of it imaginable. And every time I wrestle him, I feel like I get ran over by 10 tanks at one time. And he's the newly crowned AIWF Florida champion, so we'll be wrestling for that belt. August 12th, I'll be in Athens, Georgia, and I'll be facing Luke Sampson, who's a graduate of the Nightmare Factory. And then August 18th and 19th, I'll be in Nashville. 18th is for Saw, or USWO, where I'm their champion, and I'll be wrestling Al Snow. And the following night is for a company called CCW, who actually they're based and run most of their shows out of Florida, but they come to Nashville every month for one show. And there's a good young kid that's been wrestling for him named Trip Jordy. I'll be wrestling him. And then in the end of August, I'll be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for Heroes and Legends little fan fest thing, and I'll be wrestling Shug Duncanson for the Smoky Mountain Championship.
Very nice. Heartbreaker, you want to ask your final question?
Well, no final question, so I'll just end it with this. I guess there's been enough talk. We want to thank Mr. Damon for joining us tonight. Crippled Messiah, you still talk too damn much, but it's nice work. It's still nice running the show with you. this evening we're going to have Nicolette Marie on. She's out of the Southern California. She should be a great interview. Lots of fun. So with that being said, Crippled Messiah, grace us with your presence one more time and let's hear that paint dry and give us your sponsors.
Our sponsors are the CARE program, which stands for Community Action Reaching Everybody. And you can get a hold of the lady that's in charge of that on Facebook, and it's Becky Bernhardt. And Bruce Nichols Painting for all your painting, pressure washing, and lead removal needs, and you can find him on Angie.
All right. So as we said before, we want to thank you for joining us. Great interview tonight. Very old school. Learned a lot. Had a lot of firsts on our answers, which is what we like.
Yes.
So look forward to more from the Inclusion Matters podcast and, of course, Inclusion Pro Wrestling. That's right. We're starting our own promotion as well. More on that in the coming interviews and the coming shows. So stay tuned for that for all of our signings and shows. So until next time, we'll see you guys at 6 o'clock. And good afternoon, everybody.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.